God uses the unlikely people. Let's dive in.
My name is Zach, and it's my show. You know what else? I'm at my home. In my basement, you know it, recorded on the phone, and I think it's just about the time for us to dive right in. Let's go. Welcome to the Zach Show. Wow.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Zach Show. You can see I've turned my hat forward facing instead of backwards, which is what I had it before. I don't know. What do you think? Forwards? Backwards? Forwards? I don't know. I leaned back and then it hit the back of the chair. So that's why I went forwards instead of, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, welcome to the Zach Show. We're just kicking off a new series today called Unlikely God. And I got a few new toys. I have a Stream Deck hanging out with me. This thing's pretty cool. It's got buttons. Those are fun. And my mic is always, but I don't have my iPad in front of me because I've managed to get a teleprompter that, so the notes are in front of the camera. You can't see that one, but you can see the Stream Deck. So Stream Deck controls the teleprompter. Anyway, I like gadgets and gizmos, and I got some gadgets and gizmos. But anywho, welcome to the Zach Show. Today we're talking Unlikely God, the new series that we started doing. And we're going to talk about one of my favorite Bible stories, and that is Moses at the burning bush. And if you listen to my show, I think we've talked about this before, like a while ago, but if you listen to my show on a regular basis, you're going to hear me hit on this one a few times. And there's just a lot in this story, and it's insane if you think about it. And I just love it. I actually heard somebody talk on it like forever ago when I was a kid, like maybe high school, middle school, or something like that. So a lot of what I'm saying comes from this guy who, to be honest, I don't even remember the speaker's name. I wish I did, because then I would tell you to go check it out and to go listen to it. I just don't remember it. So I apologize to that speaker because I do not remember. But anyway, he's the one who really got me into this story and the one who helped me find the humor in it as well. But it's Moses at the burning bush. Man, if you've heard me speak before and you're listening to this, you're like, Zach, you gotta stop talking about Moses at the burning bush. But here's the thing, I can't, because it's amazing and it's so good. So anyway, we're gonna dive into it, and we're gonna talk about how this relates to the topic of God uses unlikely people, because this is the series called Unlikely God. It's actually one of the first series I thought up when I started speaking a lot. And so I just really like this series because I feel like, I don't know about you guys, I feel like an unlikely person that God uses sometimes. Like I feel like that there's probably better people out there than me. You know what I'm saying? And maybe you feel like too. And that's where I think going through this series is going to be a really, really good thing. So anyway, let's dive right in. Exodus chapter 3, verses 1 through 3. This is what it says. It says, Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the back of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush. So he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. Then Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn. This is the part that cracks me up, okay? Because Moses has no idea that God is in the bush yet. There's no one on this mountain. It's just him herding some sheep. So he says out loud to I don't know who, I am going to turn and look at this bush. And I just can't go through this story and not point that out. I think that it is hilarious that he is the only one on this mountain, and he says it out loud. Now, I will say, if you're reading this in your Bible and you're reading along with me, the big key is in the New King James Version. It kind of paints the picture this way, that he says it out loud and verbally. Not every translation paints it that way. So this one in particular, reading out of the New King James, because I think it's hilarious, the idea that Moses is alone by himself on a mountain, no one else is around, sees this bush, it's burning, but it's not being consumed, so it's burning, but it's not burning, kind of weird, and then he just says, I am going to turn and look at this bush. Anyway, cracks me up every time. I don't know about you guys. Sometimes I make myself laugh, and that's what this podcast is all about. Anyway, we'll continue on. Verses 3 through 6, Exodus chapter 3, verses 3 through 6 says, So when the Lord saw that he turned aside my computer went to sleep, and that made all of my notes disappear on my screen. So I'm going to do a quick little cut. So in the podcast world, you guys won't notice them. I'm going to do a quick little cut, fix it, quick little cut, fix it, come back. Ready? Boom. Did it work? I hope it worked. I adjusted the settings. Normally, I don't like to do edits on the podcast, but I felt like this was a special case because all of my notes disappeared, and I am lost without them. Believe it or not, I don't have this memorized. It's, if you've seen it on YouTube, then I typically have an iPad in front of me. If you're listening to it, maybe you never knew. Maybe you thought I was just that talented. The harsh reality is that I'm not. Anyway, shall we dive back in? Exodus chapter 3, verses 3 through 6. This is what it says. It says, "So when the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, 'Moses, Moses.' And he said, 'Here I am.' Then he said, 'Do not draw near this place. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground.' Moreover, he said, 'I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob.' And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God." Now look, I'm going to be real. Moses, and probably a lot of you guys know this, but Moses is a better man than me. If I were in this situation and some weird bush calls out my name and tells me to take my shoes off, I'm bolting the other way. Like, do you know how much Crocs cost these days? It's not cheap. The Lord would have had to get my attention in a different way. And I'm sure, God knowing everything knows that. So he's not going to appear to me in a bush most likely because I'm going to think it's crazy or I'm losing my mind or something. But just some crazy bush out there like, "Hey, Zach, take your shoes off." I'd be like, "No, man. I like these Crocs. Okay. I like to keep them around for a little." And then I would bolt. I'd be out of there. And even at the end of that verse where God finally reveals himself, it's like, "Oh, hey, by the way, it's the Lord." Like, you should have led with that. But look, God's perfect. He knew exactly what he was doing with Moses. And I'm sure if it were me in this story, he would have done something completely different. So anyway, God continues on with the conversation here. So Exodus chapter 3, still in chapter 3, verses 7 through 11 says, "And the Lord said this, I have surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt, and I have heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. So I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up from that land to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites, and the Hivites and the Jebusites. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. Come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt." But Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt?" So God is talking about this huge problem, right? The Israelites, they're slaves to the Egyptians, being severely mistreated. Moses, to give some backstory, was higher up with the Egyptians originally, if you kind of remember Moses' whole origin story. So the Egyptians already knew Moses. They kind of already knew who he was, right? And he was actually kind of on the run up in the mountains tending the flocks and everything because he had killed an Egyptian who was beating up an Israelite. And that is when he made a break for it. So the guy who was currently Pharaoh knew all about Moses, and they knew who he was, and now God is saying, "Hey, I'm going to send you to get the Israelites out." So Moses, who knows he doesn't have favor with anybody in Egypt, maybe the Israelites, but he doesn't have favor with anybody, maybe a good chance that they kill him if they ever see him again. His past, not so great. To be honest, it's not amazing. And there's even some scholars out there, and this is interesting. There's some scholars out there that even think that Moses had a stuttering problem. So Moses is now thinking that he's not the guy for the job, right? Like, he killed the dude. He You kill the dude. He's on the run. They already know him. They're not fond of him. And he's got a stuttering problem. You want him to go in front of like the ruler of a nation, right? So he's like, man, I'm not good enough to do what God's calling me to do. And that's where verse 11 comes from, right? Where Moses says, who am I to do this? I'm not good enough for that. The mistakes I have made make me not good enough anymore. And this is what I can imagine are all the thoughts floating around in Moses' head. And I don't think we're much different because, to be honest, I have similar thoughts, right? Now, look, I haven't killed anybody. It's never happened. I don't plan on ever doing it. But I've done a lot less worse things than what Moses has done. And I still have these thoughts like, man, I'm not good enough to lead people. I'm not good enough to speak on stage in front of people. I have these faults and these failures and everything. I think a lot of us think that we can't be used by God because of those things. Maybe we don't think we are qualified enough to do what God is calling us to do. Maybe we are looking at our past and thinking because what we have done, it disqualifies us to do what God is calling us to do. And whatever the reason, we get this thought stuck in our head that we're not good enough to be used by God. We're not good enough to do whatever it is that we feel like God is calling us to do. Now, look, I think that there are earthly consequences to things. There's some things where, like, on earth, you got to pay the piper for, but that doesn't mean that God can't use you in the situation that you're in, And so if you think you are not good enough, you're probably exactly who God is going to use. Just looking throughout the Bible, God uses the underdog. God uses Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. He made David king, who was a scrawny little shepherd boy whose father didn't think he would amount to anything. He also, he had an affair. He killed the girl's wife. Also, he did some not so great stuff. He also used Paul, who went from killing Christians to being a massive advocate for the gospel. I mean, dude wrote majority of the New Testament. He used Peter, who denied him 3 times before Christ went to be crucified. And he denied Christ 3 times after Jesus said, hey, you're going to deny me 3 times. And then Peter's like, I would never do such a thing. And then he immediately does it. So, but these are the people that God has used to build his church, to grow it, to bring people to him. So trust me, if you think that you are the underdog, if you think you are not good enough for God, if you think that your past disqualifies you, then you're in good company. All you have to do is pursue Jesus with everything that you got, and he will equip you to do what he is calling you to do. And hopefully you kept your Bibles open, or if you're driving, obviously you're not, because my big disclaimer, if you're driving, don't open your Bible up on the middle of 66, which is a major highway through Northern Virginia where I live. But check out God's response after Moses says, who am I to go and do this? And it's in verse 12. And this is God talking here. He says, so he said, I will certainly be with you, and this shall be a sign to you that I've sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. That entire verse is true, and it happened. But I love the first sentence. God says, I will be with you every step of the way. And then I even love, this is how you know. When all is said and done, if you trust me and you follow me and you do what I'm telling you to do, the way you know that this is going to be worth it is that you're going to serve God right back in this spot where you are right now. That's how you're going to know. And anyway, what I pull from this whole verse is that God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And I've said that before on this podcast, but I want you to really understand it. Nowhere in the Bible does it say you have to be good enough or smart enough or academically trained enough. You just have to be willing. You just have to pursue Jesus with everything that you have. Just trust in God, follow his guidance. And I remember when I was in college one time, I was getting my bachelor's degree. If you don't know, I have a bachelor's degree in church ministries, specializing in youth ministry. It's how I got started. I got hired under student ministries, loved every second of it. And throughout time, now I run young adults in an online campus, but not all that different, to be honest with you. But I was sitting in one of my classes, and these two guys from seminary come in. And I don't say this to try and knock seminary. I think it's great. I think you can learn a lot when you're in there. But these two guys came in from seminary, and they just looked at everybody in the class, and they said, "You're not ready for ministry. You need more Bible classes. You need more theology classes. You're not ready to go, and you're not going to be able to answer the questions that people have." And I remember thinking to myself, like, we can't be so afraid to go into ministry that we keep delaying it in pursuit of knowledge. Like, you should be in your Bible every day. You should be chasing Jesus every day. If you're doing those things, man, majority of ministry of what you're going to learn how to do ministry is by doing ministry. You know, in a perfect world, you have someone pouring into you that can give you advice and stuff, no matter what level you're on. If you're the pastor of a church, reach out to the pastor of another church, maybe somebody who's been doing it longer than you, you know? And it can be scary at times. But the biggest thing I know that I always pray for is for God's will to be done in my life, like above everything else. But if you're going into ministry, well, I think everybody's in ministry in some way, shape, or form. Like, do you have a family? You're in ministry. And it can be scary at times. I always pray for God's will to be done in my life. Even like when I'm making a huge decision, I pray for God to open doors and to close doors. I pray that if he doesn't want me to go through a door, that he closes it. Pray that he closes that door in my face, even if it hurts. That's it. You know? But God he's going to use unlikely people. And I think a lot of times we just kind of get ourselves down in the dumps and we don't think we're good enough. You know, maybe we haven't even done anything that bad, and we just don't think we're good enough for God to use us. And I think that's a bunch of baloney, a bunch of wishy-washiness. I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but God's going to use you. Like I said, all you got to do is be willing for God to do that. And that's it. So anyway, I love this series, Unlikely God. I go through it with somebody every so often. So you lucky listeners and viewers are the lucky ones that get to go through it. But I guess my challenge for you is this: to let God use you. Don't worry about being good enough. Don't worry about being the smartest person on the face of the planet. You know, people I've met that know a ton about the Bible, but they have like the relationship with Jesus part all wrong. Like, they use all the head knowledge of the Bible, all the information that they have, all the verses that they've memorized, but they kind of forget about the loving people part, and they forget about the chasing Jesus part, and they get so, I don't know, consumed with chasing knowledge that they forget to chase Jesus. But anyway, that's me rambling at this point. My notes have stopped. My teleprompter has stopped scrolling at this point. But I want you guys to be willing, and I want you to be open, regardless of what you think of yourself. And what you got to remember too is we are our worst critics, right? Everything that we do wrong, we're going to be second guessing ourselves or whatever. But God's going to look at you, and he knows who he created. He knows everything about you. A lot of times I feel like, you know, the best way I can describe, and this is a flawed analogy, so please forgive me. A lot of times I feel like the circle peg in the square hole. You know, like, sometimes that circle peg can fit in the square hole, but it doesn't quite fill that hole correctly. I can feel like that a lot of times. I don't know about you guys watching or listening if you feel like that sometimes too, but yeah, sometimes I can look at myself and think that I'm not good enough and that nobody really wants to hear what I have to say or anything like that. But, you know, once again, if you're chasing Jesus with everything that you got, he's going to use you. He's going to use you to reach somebody. And maybe your entire mission here on earth is to reach that one person. And that's a great mission, whatever it is. You know, I think if you are a parent, your mission your first ministry is your family. Once again, I don't think I'm the perfect example of that. I'm flawed in every way, but I can tell you that I try in everything that I do. That's all we can really do. I think if we try and we love Jesus, people are going to see Jesus in a lot of that. So regardless of what you think of yourself, if you think you're not good enough or whatever it is, if God's calling you to do something, if you feel like he's calling you to do something, he's probably calling you to do it. And you just got to trust him. He's going to give you the knowledge. He's going to equip you. He's going to get you where you need to be in order to do those things. So anyway, that's the Zach Show for today. I guess all the technical stuff is you're supposed to like, comment, subscribe, follow, eat a banana. I don't know. But yeah, I would love to see you guys' comments or anything like that. If you want to email me, just get in touch with me. You can drop a comment. I will see it. This is not a big operation. I think I got like 4 or 5 listeners on a regular basis. So if you comment, I'm going to see it. I'll respond to those comments. Or you can email me because I'm cool like that and I have an email. It's the digital age. So my email is just pastorzackeiter@gmail.com. It's pastorzackeiter@gmail.com. Oh, excuse me. But yeah, so send me an email, comment, like, subscribe, share, dream. I always feel weird at the end of these videos talking about like, comment, subscribe, and subscribe. I don't know, man. If this one video is all you need out of it, then I'm pumped about it. I'm excited about it. But anyway, thanks for joining us, guys. This is the Zach Show. Forgive me for the one edit I had to put in here because my computer decided to go to sleep for a second there. I appreciate you guys. I love that you're listening. I'm having a great time doing this, even making the videos and everything like that. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll be back here next week with the next segment of the series. So thanks for listening, guys. If you haven't checked out the last series, go do it. It's up there. It was just us walking through the book of Titus, which is an amazing book of the Bible. But we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
My name is Zach, and this is my show. You know what else? I'm at my home. In my basement, you know it, recorded on the phone, and I think it's just about the time for us to dive right in. Let's go. Welcome to the Zach Show. Wow.